Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about, remember 8 Passengers? They were like this vlogging family. They came under heavy critique years ago at this point, and I did talk about them. I also got a cease and desist from them. I'll link my videos that I made about them in the past down below in case you need a refresher or in case you don't know. However, I feel like not even necessarily knowing much of their history, this video will make sense. Basically, the critique that a lot of us on YouTube were giving the 8 Passenger family, so it's the mother and the father. So the mother is the central figure here, Ruby. And I thought her name was Ruby Frank, but then in one of her videos, she said Ruby Franke, which does make her sound like a sandwich. But what has turned out to be a lot of YouTube concern because they had these really harsh rules for their kids, like basically making them do hardcore boot camps to learn discipline. There's also a religious aspect mixed in. This is why I'm saying this will stand alone, but if I were you and you don't know anything about this, look into it because this shit is crazy. So a lot of us on YouTube were like, this seems inappropriate for children. We were also thinking about, in terms at least of me, you guys know how I feel about people vlogging their families. There have to be boundaries of what you're showing, and it felt like what they were showing was a lot. I found out about all of this because I was on Twitter and a clip came up of one of the 8 Passengers' children escaping their house and running to the neighbors for help. I'm going to show you the footage of that. There's nothing gory, nothing, graphic that you need to be warned of, but this shit is fucking crazy, and this is how it came back to mind because I had heard nothing about the Franke family in a while.
Yes.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could do 2 favors.
Well, what are they?
Taking me to the nearest police station. Well, actually, just one's fine.
Well, what's going on, son? Have a seat there.
It's personal business.
Have a seat. What's your name? How'd you get here? He's hungry and he's had up with various stocking feet. So he escaped.
We need the police here now.
They're on the line.
You don't have any allergies to that? Okay.
Hey, I'm Sergeant Tolber. I'm going to just get a few pictures. Are you okay with that?
Okay, just place your hand behind your back for me. Perfect. And then
Okay, go ahead and have a seat.
or if you feel more comfortable talking to him, I can step out.
I'll wait till I have a lawyer.
Okay.
This is just your chance to tell us. We're just trying to get your side of the story. So it's your chance to do that. But it's up to you. We're just here to talk. And I mean, I'm not asking any criminal questions. If you don't want to talk to us, just let us know and we'll be done.
I've already told you.
You want a lawyer? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Easy enough.
Thank you.
Is there anything else I can get for you in the meantime? I got the water. Do you need a bathroom break or anything like that? No.
So this clip is disturbing on so many levels. First of all, the fact that a kid has to run away to their neighbors, in and of itself, that is horrifying. And this isn't the silly running away of children just being mad at their parents. This is genuinely like someone escaping a fucking prison. Okay? I'm so glad that this kid came across 2 nice people and that they even wanted to feed him and everything. The marks around, like the ligature marks, I have nothing to add to that. I think any person with a brain, no. So what I do find particularly alarming as well, though, is Ruby's behavior. Now, obviously, she's been caught, I don't even want to say red-handed, but she's been caught with pretty irrefutable evidence that there is something seriously wrong in how she's running her household, how she's treating her children, or at least this child. So waiting for a lawyer is a smart idea, but how calm she looks here, potentially she's freaking out inside, nobody knows, but that creeped me out a lot. Just imagining being in that predicament and not even having that wave of holy shit, did I fuck up? Not because you were caught, but because you've been fucking up all along. So I found 2 articles pertaining to this. So one of the articles pertaining to all of this, the information that's out there as of when I'm filming, is that people are always asking about Ruby Franke's husband, right? Because they're like, okay, how did he not know? How complicit is he? All valid questions, right? Utah mommy vlogger Ruby Franke, alongside her husband Kevin and 6 children, presented a picture-perfect family to her millions of subscribers on the YouTube channel 8 Passengers. But off camera, a year after her marriage unraveled and she asked Kevin to leave her home, a twisted tale of Ruby's horrific abuse of the 2 youngest children has emerged. In newly released police interview footage of Kevin Franke from after his wife was arrested for child abuse, he tells the story for the first time. On the day the Franke's youngest son escaped from Ivins, Utah, home of Ruby Franke's friend and business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, Kevin arrived at the Santa Clara Ivins Police Department. He told the police he was looking for his 2 youngest children, who ABC News is referring to by their initials R and E. Initially uncertain of his involvement in the case, officers considered Kevin a suspect and he was questioned. Body camera footage shows Kevin Franke revealing the answer to the question being asked by the investigators. Where was he while his wife and Hildebrandt abused R and E in the summer of 2023? Kevin Franke explains to an officer that he was not living with Ruby and the children at the time and had no contact with any of them. I haven't seen them for over a year. Kevin appears visibly upset and dismayed throughout the police interview as investigators describe R&E's condition and the evidence of abuse being uncovered. But even after hearing some of the details and after the turmoil in their relationship, Kevin tells the investigators interviewing him, "I love my wife." He says that he does not want to say anything to incriminate her. Early in the investigation, officers confirmed Kevin was not living with the family at the time of the abuse, and with no evidence tying him to the case, he was cleared as a suspect. Franke tells investigators that he had moved out of the family home in Springville, Utah, 2 years after he and Ruby started working with a marriage counselor. This person is important. This is by far one of the most fucked up counselor, therapist, whatever I've ever heard of, so keep your ears open for this one. Hildebrandt, a licensed therapist, was that counselor, the same woman who would later plead guilty to second-degree felony charges of aggravated child abuse alongside Ruby Franke. Hildebrandt specialized in addiction treatment and worked mostly with couples and families from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In new video released of his police interrogation, Kevin explains why he and Ruby separated. The reasons are because of ways that I treated my wife and some of my own addictions that I was working through and seeking help on with porn. Kevin Franke's attorney, Randy Kester, told ABC News that much like some of her other clients, it was Jodi who falsely convinced Kevin that he had a problem with pornography. Kester denied that Kevin has ever looked at pornography. So to be clear, the issue here is not whether Kevin Franke ever watched pornography, because truly that has next to nothing to do with anything. What does have to do with something, though, is Hildebrandt convincing him that he had a pornography addiction. Because who exactly are we dealing with? We are dealing with a therapist who is going around convincing her clients that they have issues that they don't have. Do we see how disastrous this could be? Do we conceive of how disastrous this could be when mixed in with Ruby Franke? You have a manipulative therapist and then Ruby Franke, who seems prone to abusing her children. Put those two together, do you think it's going to end well? Here we are, so obviously not. Kester told ABC News that in hindsight, Kevin says that taking Hildebrandt's advice to separate from Ruby and his children ultimately damaged his family. He realized that by taking her expert professional advice that he was being manipulated. Although pornography addiction is not recognized as a disorder by the American Psychiatric Association, some of Jodi Hildebrandt's former clients told 2020 that she heavily focused on the issue of pornography addiction in their relationships, sometimes even at the expense of ignoring other issues that the couple was facing. Stephanie Jones, who along with her ex-husband sought Hildebrandt's therapy services from 2018 to 2019, said Hildebrandt used the term addict to describe all pornography usage. With Jodi, you look at it one time and you're an addict, Jones told 2020. In her therapy group, Jodi Hildebrandt had told many of the women to separate from their husbands at least temporarily. Can you imagine absolutely how damaging that is, that someone does something once and you immediately tell them that they're an addict, especially if they trust you? Can you imagine how much that would fuck with your brain, that someone convinces you you're addicted to something that you're not, and you feel like you're basically a victim of your own brain because your brain is quote unquote addicted? That's terrifying. Oh, your husband looked at porn? Have him sleep on the couch downstairs. He masturbates? Couch. Does it more than once? He should move out, she said, relaying the guidance she says women received from Hildebrandt. Through a spokesperson, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints told ABC News while at one time Hildebrandt was on what is considered a community resource list for local leaders to refer to members to for therapy, she was removed from the list in 2012. Detective Jessica Bate of the Santa Clara Ivans Police Department said one of the final straws for the Franke marriage came when Hildebrandt moved into the couple's home after she had a crisis in her own home. Kevin was initially hesitant, but he says in his interview with the police he was persuaded by Ruby to help Hildebrandt out. I think it's great to be close to a degree with your therapist, and by close I mean be willing to open up to them. That's ideally what you're there for. On the other hand, I am always and will forever be weirded out by anyone who is friends with their therapist. Realistically, I don't even think you should see your therapist socially, like at all. There's no reason to do that, and I feel like that makes things extremely messy, like here. As far as I know, in most places in the United States, therapists aren't cheap. So my first question would be, why does this therapist not have any money set aside to even just get a shitty hotel for a week to figure out what you're gonna do since you're moved out, right? The other thing is there no one who's not a client who can shelter this person or send this person money if that's the case? There's no one. They have to stay with you, and that's the thing that's suspicious. I'm not shaming not having the money or not having the friends or whatever the case may be. What I'm saying is that it's very suspicious that, oh, she just happens to have to stay with you after she's basically getting you to kick your husband out or make your husband sleep on the couch. Isn't that just an interesting little thing to happen? Anyway, Jodi really integrated herself, and she would go on their anniversary dinners. She would just be there. As this was all happening behind the scenes, the three were appearing in videos on social media accounts for Connections, the life coaching business that Hildebrandt founded. In one series of videos, the live couples workshop, Kevin and Ruby Franke are seen discussing topics like marriage and sex together, sometimes along Hildebrandt or other couples. 2 weeks after the first police interview, Kevin Franke went to speak with the police a second time. This time, Kevin no longer defends his wife, and he described in more detail what he says sessions with Hildebrandt were like after he and Ruby were separated. Every week was just hell, psychological hell, and Jodi was running it. Kevin has since filed for divorce, and he is currently seeking custody of his 4 youngest children. In January 2024, he filed a restraining order to block the sale of Jodi Hildebrandt's house. In the filing, he's asking for restitution to pay for the ongoing psychological care of the children. Both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt pleaded guilty to 4 second-degree felony charges of aggravated child abuse. They're now serving the same sentence, up to 30 years in prison with a possibility of parole. So I would remove the possibility for parole. I decided I was going to look a little bit further into this, right? Because remember how I mentioned the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Well, I found another article titled Ruby Franke Case, Police Records, Personal Journal Detailing Child Abuse Released. What I wanted to see was a personal journal, so I'm going to read parts from that. The parts are not super contextualized, so they don't say like what the entirety of the entry says and then just quote a bit. They'll just quote a bit. So we got to do what we can. So to contextualize it, the article introduces all of this by saying, also included in the records is a handwritten journal that Franke kept according to the Washington County Attorney's Office. It documents a timeline of the children's abuse as well as Franke's apparent musings of quote-unquote religious extremism that prosecutors say motivated the woman to harm kids. So this is religious extremism, and I did really want to point that out because in the journal entries you're going to see, it becomes more and more apparent that this is not just abuse, it extends further than that. And there's no such thing as quote-unquote just abuse. What I'm saying is that there are more layers on top of it. Okay, so let's remember what state the children are in when Ruby Franke writes these things in her diary. The children were regularly denied food and water as well as beds to sleep in, prosecutors have said. They were forced to lift and carry boxes up and down stairs, perform wall sits for hours, and do manual labor outside in the extreme summer heat without shoes or socks, among other forms of abuse. If you can engage a weak-minded soul in a physical activity of obedience, you can begin to break the bond Satan made with the weak, one entry from Franke Journal states. The women appear to fully believe that the abuse they inflicted was necessary to teach the children how to properly repent for imagined sins and to cast the evil spirits out of their bodies, the news release states. It adds that the children suffered from emotional abuse to the extent that they came to believe they deserved the physical abuse. The first unredacted entry in Franke's journal, however, notes Hildebrandt received a blessing May 21st from a person she identifies as a local Latter-day Saint temple president. About 3 weeks later, Franke's journal indicated Hildebrandt also traveled to Salt Lake City on June 13th to meet with 2 leaders from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So the faith doesn't advise or support this kind of behavior, okay? The journal entries that stretch until August 27th otherwise focus on Franke's 2 youngest children, who she accuses of deviant behavior. Quote, "These selfish children who only desire to take, lie, attack, have zero understanding of God's love for them," she wrote. At one point in July, Franke wrote that her son refused to do any more quote-unquote work and began screaming. In response, his hair was shaved off. The next day she wrote, the boy attempted to run away. "It is the boy's 12th birthday and he doesn't even know what month it is," Franke wrote on July 10th. "I told the boy that he emulates a snake. He slithers and sneaks around looking for opportunities when no one is watching." Franke continues to demean the children throughout the journal, calling her son a compulsive liar and writing that she would never have suspected the cold, dead heart he has. She describes her daughter as manipulative and at one point cut off all the girl's long hair. "No more distracting with long hair," Franke wrote in the entry. "My mom starves me and calls it fasting," Franke recalled her daughter saying in one entry. "If I can't go home, then what's the point in being obedient?" The boy repeatedly begged his mother for basic care such as water or air conditioning, according to the entries. Then it goes on to say how hot it gets, according to the climate data. On July 11th, the boy told Franke he wanted to go to jail, according to the journal. "He doesn't actually know what jail means," Franke wrote. "He has no comprehension what throwing your life away means. He just wants the immediate gratification of sitting in an air-conditioned car ride to juvie." I'm not a parent, but I'm pretty sure that if my kid was actually seriously saying to me he would rather go to jail than live under the conditions that I've put him in my home, that would cause the biggest mental breakdown I could possibly fathom. You know, it's not like when your kid throws a tantrum and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna run away, I hate you," you know, like that stupid shit. Your kid is so miserable that he is actually seriously saying that he would rather be in jail, because he would get more basic care in jail than you are providing within your own home. That should be the most horrifying thing a parent can hear if your kid is being serious, which I think we all know he was. How do you sleep at night knowing your kid is in that level of misery? Throughout the entries, Franke states that Hildebrandt was searching for property with open land to buy in Arizona, quote, "where these 2 can work." The women plan to move forward with financing the property quickly, the entries indicate. "They will think they won," Franke wrote of her children. "They will think they got what they wanted, they will relax, then pop, we will drop them like hot potatoes out in the desert. Their new home." Franke said this new home, later described as a 500-acre plot that Hildebrandt found, would have room for them to build a ranch so the children could experience quote-unquote natural outcomes like a kick from a horse or a cactus to run into. So you want your kids to think that they quote-unquote won, that they got what they wanted. So you want your kids to be like happy for 5 minutes, and then you want the other shoe to drop so they become vastly demoralized and depressed and hopeless? That's your plan? You want to see them go through like the stages of grief, seeing that their life hasn't changed at all and they're still stuck in the same misery? "The devil does not want us to take the children out of society," Franke wrote. "He did not want Jodi finding this property. He wanted Jodi and I down at the police station, not discovering a place to bring intervention to his entanglement of my children." I have to say, you guys know I have nothing against religion. People like this, I barely deem them religious. I think they're extremists and I think that they're nut jobs, but I don't really think they're religious. I think they use religion as a way to justify what they're doing, but I don't actually think they count as religious in my brain. They're just unwell. The umbrella of unwell. Because the whole concept that you think that Satan is meddling with your child's well-being and Satan didn't want you to find a place where you could basically hope your child runs into a cactus? I mean, like, Satan kind of sounds like a good guy based on how you're describing him, so, like, choose a lane. But aside from that, it's crazy to me how these types, and I'm not going to say these religious types because like I said, I don't think she's religious, but these kinds of extremists always use this guise of religion when it's like your kid prefers going to prison than living with you. Your kid ran away from you. You're treating your kid worse than a prisoner in jail, and you have the absolute audacity to start screaming about Satan? Hello? Do you own a mirror? 3 days later, the boy managed to make it to the neighbor's front door, his wrists and ankles wrapped in duct tape that covered open wounds, asking for help. This whole story is infuriating to me, and this is also, like, I'm not saying every family vlogger is like this. I think most of them are just self-centered or narcissistic. I don't think all of them go in this direction. But what does scare me is the absolute facade that was put up. And like I said earlier, a lot of us who were watching noticed that there was something up, but none of us knew it went this deep, and I think we all hoped it didn't go anywhere near to as deep as this. I honestly cannot believe that this is a reality, that they even felt so comfortable to put themselves out there to film. Like, granted, they weren't showing all the worst things they were doing to their kids, but imagine how delusional you have to be like causing this type of emotional pain to your kids and physical pain, and to just film parts and put that online and try and tell other people how to raise their kids. I genuinely am aghast. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you see this coming? Did you think it was this bad? I personally did not think it was this bad. I hoped it wasn't, but I'm just glad that now Ruby Franke is getting some kind of repercussions, as well as Hildebrandt, because like I said, I do think that Hildebrandt also would have been like extremely dangerous if she were left out in society. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.